Mishnatenu, Mishnah Bet. Perek Dalet is only two Mishnahs. We're going to start and we're going to finish Perek Dalet today. B'ezrat Hashem.
Okay.
Mishnatenu b'a lelamed, our Mishnah comes to teach, שמותר לטמון את החמין לשבת, that we're allowed to put the food.
Get cold. No, it's not going to get cold, the chamin?
No, it can stay for very long, for a long time.
With no fire.
Yeah, for sure it will stay close for supper. For sure. Debatable for tomorrow or not tomorrow, maybe not. But for sure, for the evening, it's going to be. I know. How do I know? Simple form soup. Hani, what does it do? She doesn't leave the soup on the fire on regular Shabbos. She takes the soup and she puts towels over it, and the soup is boiling. Okay. And it's like 4 hours later when we eat it with the soup. After she takes it off the fire, and it's still very hot, and she just puts regular towel. Not even they used to have like nice thick wool. It will keep it much better. So for sure for the night it will be. Maybe even for the next day.
No, I was always taught that either they heat up the bowl, they put a lot of fire there, and with the stones and everything. And then they litmon it, so they share.
Oh, so
the ham.
But yeah, but then the problem is you will not be allowed to. That's exactly what I tell you.
But it doesn't increase. Once the fire is there, it's gone. The stones.
Yeah, but the stones the question is, if you put it and the stones are hot, let's say the stones are hot, and then you will put something in it, would the temperature of the stew increase or not?
I don't think so.
Sure it would.
Why?
Think about it. The stone gets to a temperature of 500 degrees. It still continues to be 500 degrees.
No, the tafshil 500 degrees too.
No, the tafshil, it doesn't matter. You can put anything over there. Let's say it's boiling water. It's a soup. So the soup is 100 degrees.
Oh, and this is 5.
So it will increase the heat. So you wouldn't be allowed to. In other words, if it radiates heat, if it increases heat into the system, they won't let you put inside. It's like coals for them. We learned this.
For example, it stays in the same temperature?
Yeah. Think about like a thermos. Only thermos is allowed. And if the thermos increases it, it's not allowed. As soon as the thermos is going to increase the heat a little bit, for example, if the thermos, you heat the sides of the thermos, then we won't let you. And we learned that in the Pontiyar. You remember we learned that? That if you heat the samovar from the bottom and it becomes very hot in the bottom, you're not allowed to leave water inside because the bottom puts it in more energy. You remember we learned that? Okay. So ביאור משנה ב', explanation for משנה ב'. משנתנו בא ללמד, the Mishnah comes to teach, שמותר לטמון את החמין לשבת, that you allowed to put the חמין לשבת, לא רק בדברים המותרים בטלטול, not only in things that you are allowed to move, אלא גם בדברי מוקצה האסורים בטלטול. You're also allowed to use it in muktzeh that are forbidden in tiltul. For example, I'll give you a perfect example. Today people don't have it, but in the old time, people would have wool in their houses. They would shear the sheep, and they would make a bundle of wool in one of the rooms, right? So they're going to make from it clothing later on or whatever. Comes Erev Shabbat, or on Shabbat itself, and now they want to use that wool in order to put the things inside. So we have a wool. Is the wool muktzeh?
Yeah.
Why is the wool muktzeh? Because before Shabbat came in, you didn't have in mind you're going to use it for Shabbat. So it's muktzeh. So it says, would you be allowed to use the wool which is muktzeh to use this now? And now we discussed this, I don't think you were here. For example, with the hammer. You remember we discussed the hammer. You didn't have let's make a better example. With your knife for shchita. Right? We said before Shabbat, Shabbat came in and he opened up the drawer and he says there's no more knives. He has no more knives, but he has a knife for shchita. So he's allowed to use the knife for shchita to cut over things. It says you're not allowed to, because before Shabbat you didn't plan to use it. Yeah. What about a hammer? We said
the same thing. If you designate it for a kli before Shabbat,
you didn't. It's in the garage. It's in the garage, and you want to use it for nuts. Would you be allowed to?
No.
So it says. So we had the machloket over there. Rabbi Shimon. You remember? We had the machloket over there. Okay. So let's over here. Tomnim beshlachin. You're allowed to do hatmana in things that are muktzeh. For example, shlachim, orot, hides. ומטלטלים אותם. You're even allowed to move the hides. מותר לטלטל את האורות בשבת. And you're even allowed to move hides. In other words, they're telling you hides, if you have hides in your place, they are not muktzeh. You think they're muktzeh, even though you're going to make clothing from them later on, you're not going to make shoes, but they're not muktzeh. It says, why not? Ben shetamnu bahem, ben shem lo tamnu bahem. It says the hides are not going to be muktzeh whether you use them for the latmana or whether you didn't. Why? Mishum שראויים הם לישב או לסמוך עליהם בשבת. It's because it says hides people use all the time, in that time. It says hides people use. No, to sit on it or to use it for other things. So it says hides are not muktzeh. It says don't go crazy about hides. It says wool is going to be a problem because nobody uses wool on Shabbat. But hides people use if you don't have on a regular day something to sit on. You'll take a hide, you put it underneath you, and you'll sit. Yeah, it's not something that is completely out of your mind before Shabbat comes. But the gizei tzemer, we're going to see the wool is going to be problematic. Begizei tzemer, so now you have bundles of wool. Tomnim begizei tzemer, you're allowed to put it in gizei tzemer. Ve'en metaltelim otam, but you're not allowed to move the gizei tzemer. So now it's going to be a problem. Excuse me. I've never used this gizei tzemer. So it's Erev Shabbat comes in, right?
It's cool.
Erev Shabbat. Before Shabbat.
Erev Shabbat.
I put it in the gizei tzemer.
Next to the atmana.
Yeah, I put the pot inside and I cover it. Before. Now, if I put it in orot, in hides, I put it in hides and I cover it with hides, so then it's not a problem. I can take the hides and take it off. Why? Because I can use the hides for other things.
Right.
But now with gizei tzemer, I covered it. How am I going to take it out? Since the gizei tzemer are muktzeh.
But you don't tell if you take it out. You're in the same place. No?
Yeah, but no, I'm not allowed to touch it. I'm not allowed to move the gizei tzemer. It's muktzeh. The hides are not muktzeh because I can use it for sitting, I can use it for things. But the gizei tzemer, there's no other use I can use them for.
For sitting on it. It's soft.
People didn't use it for that.
Oh.
Yeah, it was like it was loose. It wasn't. People didn't use it for that.
Okay.
So let's see. So, but the problem is, en metaltelim otam. You're not allowed to move them. So how would you take the food out now? ואסור לטלטל את הגזעי צמר בשבת. You're not allowed to take the גזעי צמר בשבת. Why? Because in your mind it was for what? לפי שמיוחדות הם לתביעה ולהריגה, because you designated them for specific things, for making ropes or making hides or making garments. In other words, if you made a vessel specifically with this gizei tzemer beforehand, then you can use it. But over here you didn't. You want to use the things that you didn't. והרי הן מוקצה. And they became muktzeh. בגמרא אמרו, in the Gemara they said, לא שנו שאין מטלטלים אותם. It says, why do they tell you that you do not move them? אלא שלא יחדן להטמנה, as long as you didn't set it aside. If you set it aside beforehand just for this specific thing, you may. And by the way, I think setting aside means that you do something to them. You put him in clothes, you put him in a container, that you show that you want them for hatmana. אבל יחדם להטמנה מטלטלים אותם. But if you put it aside in a container, then you don't have to worry about it, because now they're used for hatmana.
Designated.
You designated it for Shabbat. So if you didn't designate for Shabbat, how are you going to take your food out? So כיצד הוא עושה? How would he do it? הטומן בגזי צמר שאסור לטלטלם בשבת. Somebody puts it in גזי צמר that you're not allowed to touch or remove on Shabbat. כיצד מוציא מהם את הקדרה? How does he take the pot out of them? If you tell me I'm allowed to, now I cannot move it, what allowed to? What does it help me? So it says, נוטל את הכיסוי שעל פי הקדרה. It says, it's easy. It says, don't touch the gizim, touch just the cover.
המכסה של הסיר.
Yeah, and whatever falls,
או את
falls.
הקדרה, אתה לא יכול להוציא אותה?
Or the kdera, if you touch the kdera, and take the kdera out. That's right, and take it out. Exactly. Don't touch who told you to touch the wool? Touch the kdera, touch the pot. נוטל את הכיסוי שעל פי הקדרה, he takes the כיסוי that was on the mouth of the קדרה, והן נופלות, and they will fall by themselves. וגזי הצמר נופלות מעליהן. And these gizei tzemer are going to fall from themselves. And we're going to learn this, you can use this thing in many things on Shabbat. Again, we're not learning halacha now, but just since we're talking about it, tiltul ze nikra tiltul min hatzad. It's called touching it from the side. I'm not touching, for example, I might not, for example, if this is something which is moktze, it's something I'm not allowed to use on Shabbat for whatever reason, so I cannot move it on Shabbat. But I can take this and move this, and then this will fall down. That I'm allowed to do. Yeah? והוא מותר. So טלטול מן הצד is permitted. ואין הכיסוי נעשה בסיס לגזי הצמר. And it says, but the cover, we learned already that if you have a candle sitting on top of something, right? For in the beginning of Shabbat, on a vessel, for example, you have a candle on top of a vessel. That vessel, you're not allowed to move the entire Shabbat. Right? So over here, maybe because we have moktze, like the candle, on top of the pot, maybe you're not allowed to move now the pot, the entire Shabbat. Why don't we say that? It says, ואין הכיסוי נעשה בסיס לגזי הצמר. It's not called a base to גזי הצמר. שלא ניתן שמה אלא לכסות את הקדרה. Because it's only put there to cover the קדרה. In other words, the whole idea of the tzemer on top was for the sake of the קדרה. That's why you did it for. וכיצד הוא נוטל את התבשיל מתוך הקדרה. It says, and how are you going to take the תבשיל מתוך הקדרה? In other words, the reason why you put the tzemer over there was for the food. So, if you put it there for the food, you're allowed to take it for the food. When you put the candle on top of something, you didn't put the candle on top of the plate because you wanted the plate. The opposite. You put the candle on top of the plate because you wanted the candle there. So that is the difference. Okay. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah Omer. Rabbi Elazar, the son of Azariah, says, Kupa mate al tzida. He says, what about a kupa? What's a kupa? You've got a container, a big container, and then you put wool inside.
Inside, outside. That's what I didn't understand. Why they put it inside?
So you can put it outside. Yeah, make another partition inside. Okay. That's what I meant. Yeah, okay. But practically, I think that's what they used to do inside.
Inside. Okay.
Yeah, they would have a container. If they put it outside, it will fall. So the container's wall will hold it. So now we're going to have a problem though. There's a hole that's being made, right? So now you want to take it Friday night to eat. So you're going to take it out of the hole Friday night, and you're going to eat from it, not from it. You're going to put it there, and then you want to put it back so it will be warm for tomorrow morning. Okay. Yeah. The problem is that the gizim would fall, and now there's no more hole, no more hole. So you're going to touch the gizim. The gizim is, what did we say?
Moktze.
It's moktze. So what are you going to do with it? So let's see what he said to do. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah Omer, he said, Kupa mate al tzida. When you have a box full of gizim, you turn it on its side. Hakupa shetaman by takdera. A kupa that he put the kdera inside, mate ota al tzida, he puts it on its side, venotel me'atavshil shebakdera, כפי צרכו לאותו סעודה. And he takes from inside as much as he can from that סעודה. In other words, don't take it out and put it back in. הוא משאיר את הנותר בקדרה לסעודה אחרת. And you will leave leave it this out. אבל לא ייטול את הקדרה מתוך הקופה. Don't take it out. Because if you take it out, you want to put it back in. שמא ייטול ואינו יכול להחזיר. Because once you take it out of there, you will not be able to return it there. Why? שאם ייטול את הקדרה, that if you're going to take the part from inside this box, שמא ייפלו גזעי הצמר, all the גזעי הצמר might fall and cover up the hole, שמכאן ומכאן, but the both sides, לתוך הגומה, into the hole, שעמדה בהקדרה, that the pot stood in it, ולא יוכל לתקן את הגומה ולהחזיר לתוכה את הקדרה, and he's not allowed, he's not able to fix the hole, and to return the קדרה inside, מחמת איסור תיטולי הגזין, we just said, you're not allowed to move the גזין. וכיוון שיש חשש שמא יטלטל את הגזין ויחזיר את הקדרה, and since we're worried that the hole will get covered up, yeah, we're worried that this is going to happen, אסור להוציא את הקדרה מתוך הקופה. We tell you, you're allowed to use it, but don't take the קדרה out. Just take the top out, take the things in, and then put it back. וחכמים אומרים, נוטל ומחזיר. חכמים says, you're allowed to take it out, and you're allowed to return it. Now, what do you mean you're allowed to return it? You can't. You're not allowed to touch the gizim. So what do you mean when Chachamim says you're allowed to take out and you're allowed to return? It doesn't make sense at all. So let's see Chachamim. How do they make sense? בגמרא מבואר, in the Gemara it explains, שלדעת חכמים מותר ליטול את הקדחה מתוך הקופה. It says, Chachamim are not worried. It says you can take the pot from inside the קופה, ואין חוששים שמא תתקלקל. It says, we're not worried, maybe it's going to cover inside. If it's going to cover inside though, הגומה ברם, אם נתקלקלה הגומה. But if it got covered inside, even the Chachamim will tell you what? You're not allowed to put it back. So in other words, it's not that the Chachamim are not, they're not worried that it will fall. It says, take it out, and if it didn't get covered, you can put it back in. But if it got covered, we don't, it's Moktze. We're just not going to tell you, don't take it out, maybe it's going to become ruined. We're not worried. If it become ruined, it became ruined. That's your problem. Then don't use it. מודים חכמים שאסור להחזיר את הקדרה. The חכמים admits you're not allowed to return the קדרה. וההלכה כחכמים. And the halacha is like the חכמים that you're allowed to take it out, don't allow to put it back in. You know it's gizim. Obviously in all the things are gizei tzemer that you never used before. If you designated it for that, then it's another subject completely.
No, it's the opposite. It's the one that you designate for this. That's what you have to use.
No, otherwise,
not that you didn't use it.
If it's designated for specifically only for this, or only for this, if it's designated and you, let's say you put some material over there and something, then it's not muktzeh for that. You're allowed to use it.
Oh, so here they're talking
but
only
in the desert. You just took it.
But everybody would have it in mind because they want to eat. They would probably.
You go back to that time. See, you have in that time, you have material in your home. That material is designated in your mind for.
Yeah. What I'm saying is, I'm sure that they have a place of atmana with the wool already.
Oh, and then they can do whatever they want with it.
You know,
that thing they can do whatever you want. That's not our case.
And it looked like it was inside their house.
Yeah.
They need light in order to take.
Yeah, in that case we don't have a problem. Then you have a material. Over here it's in the case you didn't have.
Yeah.
You went camping.
Yeah.
Or you went into somebody else's house, whatever it was. Yeah. Okay. What happened? Lo kisaum be'od yom. The question now is, are you allowed to? So everything until now was, as we discussed, the datmana erev Shabbat. What about on Shabbat itself? Are you allowed latmin? On Shabbat itself. Lo kisau mi bod yom, you didn't cover it when it was still day. Mi shelo kisat tafshil be'erev Shabbat, somebody who didn't cover when it was still Friday, לא יחסנו משתחשך. He's not allowed to cover it when it's going to become dark. לפי שאסור לטמון בשבת, אפילו בדבר שאינו מוסיף הבל. Everything we said about Atmana is before Shabbos. On Shabbat itself, nothing is allowed. You're not allowed to לעשות Atmana בשבת. For example, you take the chon pot of the fire, you give it in the morning a little bit, and then you put it back somewhere else, and then you cover it with towels, so it will keep the heat. You're not allowed to.
Because it increases the heat.
Even if it doesn't increase the heat, even if it just remains the heat, you're not allowed to. The remains the heat is only allowed when? Before Shabbat. Why do not? גזרה שמא ימצא אדם קטרתו שנצטננה. It is a decree that if person, he says, if we allow you to retain the heat, you're already in the mood of retaining the heat. That's your mindset. Oh, now you're going to start increasing the heat. And that's what we don't want you to do. וירתיחנה בשבת. And he's going to heat it up on Shabbat. כיסה את התבשיל בערב שבת. What happens if you completely covered, you put towels on it, and you put tzemer on it, whatever you want to put on top of the תבשיל, ערב שבת, everything is nice. And then ונתגלה בשבת. Then the wind came in and it blew the towels off. What about this case? מותר לכסותו. You're allowed to recover it. שהרי מותר להחזיר את הקדרה למקום ההטמנה. Because you're allowed to return the קדרה to the place of atmana. So you see the difference between this and the other one. What's the difference? In the other one, you took it from the atmana completely. You remember? Okay. You took it from the atmana and then you want to retain the heat. In other words, you want to put it in something new in order to retain the heat. We said already before that if you took something out of it, the Chachamim allows you to put it back into the same thing. So over here it's the same thing. You're taking it out and you're putting it back into the same thing. You're not retaining the heat through a third thing. It's the same place. Okay. ממלא את הקיטון. A person is allowed to fill a jug or a container of water. ממלא את הקיטון, ממלא אדם את הכד, מים צוננים. A person is allowed to fill a jug with cold water. This is ונותן לתחת הקר או תחת הכסת בשבת. And he's allowed to put it inside, underneath a pillow or something like that on Shabbat. Why? כדי לקיים צינתן. So that they're going to remain cold. Exactly the opposite, for the coldness, not for the heat. ויש מפרשים כדי להפיג צינתם. And there are those who says the opposite. It's in order to make them a little bit harder. שאין זו דרך הטמנה. It says because this is not the way people do atmana, this is not the way people used to cook or to keep hot food. So therefore the sages did not make a decree on such strange situations. ולא גזרו עלי חכמים. The sages did not decree on such a case. ביארנו, we explained this Mishnah, כפי רוב המפרשים, according to most commentaries, שדברי רבי אליעזר בן עזריה, that the words of אלעזר בן עזריה over here, when it says מתת הקופה על הצידה, הוא המשך לעניין הטומן בגזעי צמר. This is the way we say that you put the גזעי צמר inside, like I explained. אבל הרמב"ם מפרש עניין אחר. The Rambam says, no, he's talking about something else. ואינו מדבר בהטמנה בגזעי צמר דווקא. He's not talking about the גזעי צמר that I said that they are מוקצה. אלא בכל הטמנה שהיא. The Rambam says he's talking about any kind of הטמנה. כשנוטלים את הקדרה מתוך הקופה שטמנו בה, when you take the vessel, the pot, from the box that you put the pot inside, פעמים שמושב הקדרה מתקלקל. There are times that the place where the base of the pot becomes ruined. ולדברי הכל אסור להחזיר את הגדרה לשם. It says, you're not allowed to return the pot there. שהרי עושים לה מושב חדש. It says it's got nothing to do with cooking. You're building a container. That's my problem, not cooking. Yeah? ונמצא כאילו טומן בשבת. It says, you are building, you remember you're not allowed to put towels on it? Why? Because you're building a container with towels. Over here, if it was the same container, you're allowed to return to it. Okay? But over here, you're building the container again. So you're not allowed to. מכאן אומר רבי אלעזר בן עזריה, from here רבי אלעזר בן עזריה says, שחייב להיזהר בשעה שנוטל את הגדרה מתוך הקופה. It says you have to be careful not to ruin the container. שלא יתקלקל מושבה, because otherwise you're ruining the container and you're making a container on Shabbat. כדי שיוכל להחזירה לשם. It says in order that you be able to return it over there. אבל חכמים סוברים שיטול כדרכו ויחזיר. But the sage says you don't have to worry, maybe you're going to ruin the container. If the container is going to get ruined, then don't return it. But you don't have to worry about such things. Chachamim says, אם תקלקל הגומה לא יחזיר, but if it was became a container. In other words, the difference between them, it says, what are they afraid of? Rabbi Elazar ben Elazariah is worried about cooking. So, according to the first opinion we learned, he's worried about cooking. According to the second opinion that we learned, he's worried about building. Two different melachot of Shabbat.
It's